Welcome to Church Planting in a Pandemic, the story of Hope City, Florida. We're your co-hosts, Chandon Bangar and Eric Smith.
Hey friends, welcome back to episode 6 of our podcast, Church Planting in a Pandemic. It's been an amazing time so far. Hope you're enjoying the story that we've been sharing about the church that we have the privilege and honor to lead, called Hope City Church here in Southwest Florida. I'm here with my friend and co-host, Chandon Bangar. He's our creative and worship pastor. My name is Eric Smith. Thanks again for joining us. Chandon, I'm going to let you get us started here.
Yeah, I mean, we've kind of covered so much in the last 5 episodes. I'm excited to we hit on launch day a little bit, just briefly, but this is kind of like, all right, we hit launch day. How? Why? What? You know, there's a lot of questions I feel like our listeners are probably asking for themselves, and hopefully in these next few episodes we can give you some nuts and bolts on how that kind of came together and worked. But yeah, I'm really excited about just where we're at. But it took a lot of work. It took a lot of work, a lot of prayer, a lot of God's favor, and I feel like let's recap some of launch day. I mean, there was so many moving parts and so many things that I feel like just kind of were lining up for launch day. What were you thinking? Like, what was going on in your mind coming up for launch weekend?
I knew we'd had a couple preview services. I felt like our launch team, we had spent 10 months building that team from January, from a handful of people to this moment where our launch was October 24th. And we'd had 2 preview services, and we'd built that team to, I felt like 150 people that would call this their church and come on a consistent basis, and we're going to invite people. So I felt good going into it. You never know what's going to happen, right? But I felt good going into it, and man, it was just amazing seeing all the people show up, and God just brought people, and we saw a lot of people give their lives to Christ that day and take the next step to want to be baptized and get connected and all those amazing things. But what was going through my head was I was scared, just like anybody else would be, because you're having a lot of fears. But I was also, at the same time, I felt confident. And, the thing that gives you the confidence is the call of God.
Yeah.
And what he's done up to that point, and just, remembering that. So when you're in the middle of launching something or starting something new and you have all those thoughts and fears in your mind, just remember in those moments God's faithfulness. That really helped me a lot.
Yeah. I think it's only human and natural to feel, overwhelmed, a little fearful of what's come, because you just don't know, especially the title of our podcast is Church Planting in a Pandemic. Like, we were experimenting just as you guys are experimenting, hopefully, or maybe thinking about, and it was just like, who's to know? I mean, we did the groundwork, I feel like, so it wasn't like we were just showing up and saying, God, hopefully people come, and we did a lot of work and a lot of preparation. How many people do we have launch day?
411. Yeah, so 411 people showed up, which was awesome. The thing with, all the preparation and all of that is you've got to do all the work, but you still don't know, if everything's going to come together or not. But it was an incredible day. God really moved. He showed us a lot of favor. And, just really thankful for all that and what all happened. And it's exciting to see.
It was. And I think what shocked me the most was honestly just the people that came back the next week. Because, you build up this, marketing. You kind of tell people, hey, we exist. We want you to come out to this big launch we're having. But then what? What's after that?
Yeah, because really, let's be honest about it. We're talking about launching a church, and really, who cares how many people you have show up to one service? What really matters is the foundation that you've built. Yeah. Right? So you've laid the foundation. For us, it was 10 months of a lot of prayer, dependency on God, and hard work. And a lot of people working hard, not just us, a lot of people serving, and just an amazing team of volunteers. But you lay that foundation, and really it's what's after you launch the church, right? Yeah. That's really what you're looking at, because anybody, would be excited about, we had 411 people, but if the next week you had 50 people, you would probably feel worse about the 411 people, because you'd be like, what did we do? This is terrible. And one of the things that has been really amazing is to see God's favor in us retaining that, because really I was probably more nervous the second week.
Yeah.
It was Halloween, October 31st. I was probably more nervous that week than I was for launch week, because the launch week I felt pretty, good. I was nervous, and fear and doubt and all these things are creeping into your mind, but
sure.
But just believe that God was going to do something special, and we saw that. And then the next week we came back and we saw 400 people again.
Right.
Which was what was so amazing. And so, some things that I would just share to those listening and watching is, if you're launching a church, or let's say you're trying to get your established church to bounce back, and you're building up a lot of momentum to this one day, and you're like, we're going to start anew from this moment forward. Like, this is a relaunch for us. Or you're launching a church, or you're kicking off something big. Really the main thing you've got to do is make sure that whatever you offer, you can repeat.
Yeah.
Right? Because I think we didn't have juggling monkeys or, anybody doing anything, extraordinary. We did what we knew we could do week in and week out. Now, I will tell you, we are very committed to excellence because we're doing this for the Lord. And we should give our absolute best to God.
Right.
Whatever it is, whether it's greeting someone, kids ministry, worship, teaching, prayer, whatever it is we're doing, we should give our absolute best, because this is for God and He deserves our best. And so we did it with excellence, but we knew it was something that we could repeat. And I think that's really important. It's one thing to hire a bunch of guns to come in and have this big show and this thing that just blows everybody away. But if they come back again and it's like, wait, these aren't even the same people that are leading this. What happened? What happened to the famous person or whatever? Now, that's not to say if a famous person wouldn't have offered to come, we wouldn't have let them.
We could have pulled some strings and made it happen. We actually even were thinking about should we call some people in to come, help? Because here I am, launching a new church, and I've got to build a worship team. And so it's not like I just had a full-fledged worship team on the stage.
Right.
And we talked about that. We could have brought people in and it would have been cool. But then at the end of the day, what's repetitive,
Yeah, what can we do the next week?
Yeah.
And so I've had a lot of friends that have asked me, why have you guys seen so much retention? So just to give you a little bit of information, so we launched with 411, and the rest of 2021, our average attendance was 401.
Yeah.
Just amazing, and that counts holiday weekends and everything from the 2 weekends of Thanksgiving, which were, always like some of the lowest weekends of the year. And so it was, we had some really incredible weekends. We saw 74 people from October 24th to December 24th become Jesus followers.
Yeah.
We saw amazing. A lot of baptisms and just so many amazing things that the Lord did. But I've had people ask me, why? How did you guys do it? And honestly, it's not because we're super skilled or we have, some kind of secret knowledge. It's just God's favor. And I just want to encourage you with that, because if you're serving God wherever that is, maybe it's in the business world, maybe it's in the secular, in some kind of secular space, or in education, or in the church, which is our world. If God's called you, you got to continue to depend on that and press in on that and trust that. And really, we just knew God had called us to do it, and His favor was just all over this thing from day one. And it's okay, I get it. God's favor, right?
Yeah.
But what else? And
what's the nuts and bolts of that? Like, how did we ramp up to launch weekend? And then even after launch weekend, how do we get people not to stay, but maybe just have interest in coming back? Because, launch day, you've got a lot of people in the community who maybe are just coming in to check it out for the first time.
Sure.
Maybe they're connected at another church, but what we've seen is there's a lot of people who are just unchurched because of the pandemic.
Yep.
Maybe they disconnected or haven't gone back since, and they were like, hey, new church in our area, maybe it's closer to home, let's try it out.
Yeah, and people that have moved here within the last year or two, which is a big part of our church. And that's true for any community. Yeah. I mean, there are people that are massively disengaged, and you could be super discouraged by that. And I mentioned this in earlier episodes of this podcast, but see it as an opportunity. Those who have vision and see opportunity will be the ones who succeed the most in the next decade. That's who's going to succeed. And we believe, I mean, I felt like the Holy Spirit told me 2021 was the year of opportunity. And I still believe we're in the year of opportunity. So I'm pressing into that. But really, I mean, I've got to give, obviously, glory to God. He's the one that's the life changer and the one that's done all these supernatural things. But he does that through people.
Yeah.
And it's through our volunteers. I mean, we've had over 100 people that have stepped in and served and have just been amazing. And it's through those people that we've seen the things happen, because you can have a great song and a great message, but if everything else around it is a mess,
right,
you're in a bind, right? You're in big trouble. But we've had amazing volunteers who've taken on incredible ownership. And so the people that are part of this church are the reason this church is great. And the reason that this church has a great future. It's not because of Chandon. It's not because of me. It's because of the people of God. And what makes a great church, in my opinion, are those who are unified around a vision that aligns with the Word of God and are committed to that.
Yep.
And they are humble and they're serving and they're on fire for God. Now, our job as leaders, as pastors, is to help facilitate that.
Yeah.
Right? We're supposed to help create a pathway for people to engage with God and to create the culture in which that can take place. And so it's our volunteers. Another big piece of not only ramping up, but the retention that we've been talking about as well is marketing. I mean, I can't overexpress. If you're wanting to relaunch your church, launch a new church, get your church back going, you need to really step back and evaluate things. And for us, and I'm going to talk more about that in a future episode in a deeper way, but our marketing strategy, which I give so much credit to Chandon and to just our people for sharing it on social media platforms and in other ways by handing out cards and inviting people that they met and all those type things. But, man, the marketing strategy, just getting that out there in so many different platforms, from YouTube to social media to in their mailbox, really, I think, made a big difference to really get our name out there. Because when you're a new organization, whether you're in business or in the church, you could be offering the greatest food or the greatest service or the greatest whatever, but if nobody knows you exist, it's a very difficult thing. And so a big part of the whole process is getting your name out there so people know who you are.
Yeah.
And so you've got to have a very robust marketing plan to, empower your people, but also to get your name out. And I think when you have the combination, this is a key combination of getting your name out there, but then also having your people resourced and ready to share your name, because those are multiple links in the chain that somebody saw it on YouTube, they saw it on Facebook, they were invited by somebody they know shared it on a social media platform. And all those connections, that's what ultimately leads to them going, I'm going to check this out.
Right.
And it's been amazing because so many people have showed up and they've been disconnected from church. They haven't been in church. They're looking for God. They're just looking for, I want to hear from God.
Right.
And it's
I
been
think,
cool.
Yeah, I think another exciting piece of it, outside of just being a new church, maybe you're, taking over a church, relaunching, whatever that looks like, planning. We live in a digital age, in a digital world, and with the pandemic, it kind of made everybody...
Kind of like right now, people are listening to something digital.
You're listening
or watching
to this podcast or watching it on YouTube or whatever platform you're viewing it, but at the same time, it's like, okay, people are at home watching church from home, if they're even involved in a church online. Now we're launching a church, and I think back to like a new restaurant in a community. They do like a soft launch. They send out mailers. They just make sure people know that they exist, that they're there. And we just did that. It's one thing to have faith and just be like, God's going to bring the people. It's another thing to see that faith in action and say, yeah, God's going to bring people, but He's going to do it through us, right? Mm-hmm. And so we're the vessels, we're the vehicle that God is going to use to have an impact on this community, have that engagement in our city, and just share that hope of Jesus with our city and beyond, right? And I think it's just so cool to see that and see our volunteers empowered, not just through a handout, but word of mouth is really big for our church too. Yeah. I mean, there's neighborhoods near our church where people are like getting excited about church again. They're starting small groups. They're just kind of going ahead of the game.
Yeah, we've got huge neighborhoods all around us, and we have tons of people coming from there. Yeah. It's very encouraging and really cool to see.
I think the coolest thing, and for me at least, when you come from small town Mississippi, not that that's bad, it's just you're used to either these small or large Baptist churches or whatever church, and you see salvations here and there, like throughout the year. Mm-hmm. But what was so exciting is seeing people both young and old. I'm talking about, we baptized a 95-year-old woman the other day, which is unbelievable. We've seen couples who lived their whole life in Catholicism decide to follow Jesus, and their hands raised and they want to pray to receive Jesus. And it's just so cool to see that. And I think it's all because of that hard work and all of God's favor on top of that. And it's really cool to see the people of God steward what God is doing in our church. And so I love seeing that. I think it's really cool. But what's another thing we did? We did a team night, right? We kind of, before we launched, we kind of talked about, okay.
Yeah, so the whole way along in the, we talked about this in earlier episodes, that when I talked about the 3 trimesters of planting a church, all these different phases, and we could go into deep detail into those, which we didn't go into great detail, but in that, all along the way, you're plugging people in as God brings them onto your launch team, right? But right before that, and it was after we did our first preview service, we knew we had casted another net. So a preview service, if you don't know, is before you launch, you can offer services that are a preview of what people can expect to experience. So it's almost like a launch service, but you're not going to press the gas quite as much and promote it as much. But you're trying to even get your people who are part of your team to get trained and experienced on what the launch is going to be like in the weeks to follow. But it's also an invite to people who might have an interest in being part of the church plant. So from that first one, we did a team night, and a team night's a big party. We have another one that we're going to be doing real soon. And we do this often, every quarter or a little after that, longer than that. And it's just a big party where we say thank you to the people who serve, and we bless them, but we also invite other people to be a part of it. And that was a big piece of the puzzle on getting our people ready and to make sure you have the volunteers. We've had over 100. This was last year, 2021, just between October 24th and December 24th, 106 different children who attended our church, which is incredible. And you've got to have the volunteers to serve those families. So it was a lot of hard work. Our kids team, Sandra and Raya, did an incredible job. Just so grateful for both of them and their heart and their willingness to serve and just the hard work they've put into it. And those were big parts of it. Some other things that I feel like we did that hopefully will be helpful to you if you lead a church and you want to know is we launched at a kind of a different time in late October, so we knew it wasn't the time where we could launch groups and launch a lot of things. We already had some groups going from our launch team, but we didn't want to launch new groups 2 weeks before Thanksgiving or 3 weeks. And so, but what we did was we gave the dates in print, and we made sure that we got that into the hands of people of here's what's coming. Here's when groups are going to be launching in the spring. Here's different ways to connect. Here's when our connection classes are going to be. All these different things that really helped, I think, give people like, okay, I'm coming to this service. I want to get more engaged. It's coming. After the holidays and Christmas and everything.
I think you mentioned connection class. So something we did as well is we decided to pre-film a lot of our connection class because we knew after the launch, people are going to, be asking the question, how can I get involved? What can I do? And outside of, signing up to serve, that next step would be connection class. And so we got together, Eric and I did one day and had him film just, what it looked like to be a member. That's what our connection class kind of is, a member of our church. So people could align with our beliefs and make sure they were, engaging with the church that they also believed in and aligned with. So do you want to talk any bit about that?
Yeah, so we filmed that. It's about 50 minutes long. It's pretty simple. But we wanted to create that to be on demand because we also recognize that we wouldn't have the manpower or time after we launched to be able to pull that off. And we're going to be doing one live coming up soon, and we'll offer those live sporadically. But we have it on demand all the time. And the reason we do that is we want to get as many people connected as possible so you can go online, take the connection class, sign the covenant that our connector covenant. You get involved in serving, jump into small group, all those type of things. And so it's really helping mobilize people and assimilate, help them take their next step to actually go from just coming to a service to really being a part of the church. And so that was a big thing that I would, encourage others to do. And with that being said, I can't express this, over exaggerate this enough, is you've got to keep things simple. Like with us starting the church, and we were blessed to even have what we had starting, which is more than what most churches have when they launch. I was full-time, Chandon's full-time, our 2 kids, team members part-time, and some volunteers that pretty much work here for free. So we had an amazing team. But even with that, we kept it very simple.
Yeah.
You've got to keep it simple. It goes back to what we said earlier. You got to offer what you can repeat. And so better to do a few things with excellence than many things poorly. It's
it's this idea of focused excellence, right?
Yeah.
It's like, let's make Sunday the best. Like, let's pour all of our eggs into that basket and make sure not the necessary experience of Sunday, but the connection with people. Because I mean, you could put on a light show or a rock band on Sunday on your stage, but at the end of the day, people could care less about that. At the core of it, they want connection. And so when we can offer biblical truth from the stage and engaging worship that people can connect with and have freedom to worship in, it's like right after that they're like, how can we get more involved? Mm-hmm. Do we have to wait till next Sunday to like experience this again or be a part of this? And so we just want to make sure the things we do are simple, but they're done with focused excellence.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And for us, our heart is we know that people just like us, I mean, we just want to hear from God. We want to experience God. We want a touch from God. We need to hear His voice, and that's what people are looking for. No matter how far they are along on the journey of maybe they're exploring the claims of Jesus all the way to a disciple maker. We just want to hear from God, and they want to have spiritual family. And so for us, our heart is for people to have that family, to have that experience, and to be connected. And I hope that people, when they come, maybe not everybody gets it, but I hope people catch that.
Yeah.
Even if they don't know that much about us, hopefully they feel that and they experience that our heart is not for them just to come and hear you sing and me talk, but it really is to have a spiritual family, to grow, to become more and more like Jesus so that they can impact the world and we can reach more people for the Lord. So that's what we're about. That's what we're focused on. And it's been just unbelievable to see what God is doing. And so those are some of the practical nuts and bolts of how, we've retained the people and they keep coming. It's a little wild. I'm going to be honest with you. It's like drinking from a fire hose when you have 50 first-time guests every week.
Yeah.
And you're like, I mean, gosh, trying to follow up and help people connect. It's overwhelming. It's really more than you can handle, but you just try to handle it the best you can, and you pray that God will give those people that come grace toward you, and that God will somehow work supernaturally to work it out because you feel like you're not doing the best job that you could do in that follow-up process because it's just so many people and so many decisions and things that are moving so fast. But
no, it's funny. It's funny you say like grace for people and their grace for us, because I feel like COVID probably brought on I thought it would make people more shy, but it made people a lot more bold in their opinions. Because, you got all these keyboard warriors online and stuff saying what they want, but then you get in person, I was like, they won't say that in person. But people are opinionated. And I think when we run a church, or when you guys run a church, you hear everybody's opinion, right? Oh, yeah. This is too loud. This looks funny. Fix this, lower this, move this. And it's not that those are bad things. It's, people are entitled to their opinion. And that's why we kind of set up our setup like we do, because it's what we like. It's what we prefer. But at the end of the day, it was just so funny getting started, because it's like, hey, like, just give us some grace here. Like, we're starting a church during a pandemic. Things may go wrong. Technology fails at times, but hey, God never does. So
that's right.
We're grateful to see God moving.
Yeah, I will tell you, everybody that has planted a church that hasn't seen what we've seen is gonna say, yeah, whatever. I hate you for even saying that. But one of the things that does stink a little bit about growing and coming out of the gate so strong is when people show up and you're in week 4 or 5 and you just launched, like you just started, right? You just started this thing, but they come in and they see all the people and they have an expectation that you should have all these things happening. And you're like, last month we just started, so it does create a little bit of a challenge, because people expect, well, where's your youth ministry? Where's your this? Where's your that? And you're like, we're doing that. We just hadn't gotten to that yet. Yeah. We're doing this. But people, for the most part, have been incredible and very gracious. And it's been really cool, because Southwest Florida is like this melting pot of not just around America, a lot of Canadians. Yeah. I mean, it's people all over the world, but it's pretty cool. And, people, for the most part, have been cool. But we definitely had some interesting conversations, because anytime you plant a church, interesting people come out of the woodwork to show up to share their spiritual opinions and their ideas, and you just have to smile and
Yeah, I mean, you kind of guide them through why you made that decision, and sometimes there's conversations that you don't say anything back to, but at the end of the day, you'll have people step up, this is really cool. Like somebody noticed some of our walls were empty, and they're like, hey, I paint for a living. Would it be cool to like give you guys some paintings or something to put in some rooms? And it was cool, because whether or not we decide to go with the paintings, it's just, somebody noticed something and they brought a solution to the table with it. They didn't just address a problem, They're not like, here's a problem, fix it. They said, here's something I noticed, how can I help? And good. So I think it kind of helps set people up, at bat for, you want to be a volunteer? Is that what you're asking? And so I think it's just cool to see that, because we're constantly having these conversations with new people or people that have been here for a little while. And it's just like, one of my missions is like to meet people I haven't met yet. And when you launch that strong, it takes weeks, months.
Yeah,
I'm still meeting new people.
Names.
I'm like, hey, or, how long have you been coming to Hope City? Some people are like, we just started. And some people are like, we've been here since launch. And I'm like, I'm so sorry I haven't met you yet. I'm great with faces, terrible with names, but we'll get this worked out. And so,
yeah, it's wild.
Yeah, it's absolutely wild. And so, matter of fact, that happened at an event we had last night. We did a little small night of worship, and it was just, our first event as a church outside of Sundays, where we just wanted to create a time for people to respond and, have prayer and I talked to this couple, and I introduced myself, and he shook my hand. He was like, I emailed you last week. And I was like, oh, you're Wes. Okay. So I connected the dots, and incredible, guy. And it was cool to talk to him, but it was like, man, it's so important to keep that connection. And I could have easily just been like, I don't know who you are. And I was like, oh yeah, my bad. I remember you emailed and we just talked about this event, and it was cool to catch up and things like that. But there's constantly people coming through our doors that, they're hungry for connection. Yeah. They've been cooped up in their homes too long, and now they're like, all right, let's do something for the Lord. And so I challenge, anybody listening to this, like, strive for the connection. It's hard to, push to the text and the emails and the next steps, but it's worth it, because that's where you see life change. That's where people want to take that next step, as, they want to be saved or baptized or serve, whatever it looks like. So I don't know. I feel like that's pretty much what we wanted to cover in this episode, right?
Yeah. If I could ask one thing as we wrap it up, we're kind of in the throes of that and trying to just help people get connected. So when you think about us, if you don't mind, pray for us and pray that we'll do a good job and help people take those next steps to become part of what God's doing here. But until next time, we're going to sign off, and we look forward to seeing you in the next episode. You're not going to want to miss. It's going to be good.
Yeah.
Thanks.